Hello Internet, my name is Lave. I hope you're staying safe and well. I'm really missing the ability to go to the cinemas at the moment, so I'm having to stick to TV shows and streaming services. So this week I watched Afterlife Season 2. Now I never actually reviewed Season 1, so this will kind of cover both, so there might inevitably be some spoilers for Season 1. So Afterlife follows Tony, played by Ricky Gervais, who's mourning the loss of his wife Lisa, who died of cancer, and understandably he's not handling it too well. With a somewhat pessimistic outlook on life, he directs his grief and sorrow at anyone who annoys him or gets in his way, including his friends and colleagues. So I enjoyed the first season. It had moments that really made me laugh out loud, with Ricky Gervais at his cynical best as Tony, but it also had some dramatic and touching moments in there too. I mean, Ricky Gervais is really good at crying on cue, but he takes his character Tony to a much darker place than any of his previous characters or incarnations. And when season 1 came to a close, I was kind of hoping that that was it, because he's always known in the past when to end his projects, at least from a narrative point of view. If you look at The Office and Extras, those characters got to a point and then their future was left to the imagination in a bit of ambiguity. Apart from David Brent, Life on the Road, he went back to do a movie on that. I'll come back to that later. Season 2 of Afterlife picks up with Tony in pretty much the same place as where we found him in season 1. He's still grieving for his wife, which has put a wedge between him and his new love interest, the nurse looking after his father, played by Ashley Jensen from Extras. Now, I do praise his writing for taking the logical next step with Tony. Like Ricky's other characters, he had his redemptive arc. He just finished his redemptive arc in season 1, but you can't just decide one day to stop feeling grief and pain and decide one second that you're not going to be depressed anymore. So we see more of him trying to push through that pain whilst actively trying to help his friends and colleagues who also have their problems. And of course, things and people still annoy him along the way, and he lets them know it in his usual scathing way. Really, there's an argument to say that he's devoted more time to develop the side characters more than Tony in season 2, but I can't help but feel that Ricky Gervais is recycling material from previous projects. It also doesn't help that he uses the same actors from previous projects, but let me give you a few examples to show you what I mean. Like in season 1, he gets annoyed by the guy eating crisps too loudly, or grossed out by his colleagues slurping on that weird pudding. In season 2, it's a Pilates or yoga instructor with a snotty cold that annoys him. It's the same scenario, and if you forgive the pun, it's the same gag. And going back to him using the same actors in his projects, which isn't a problem in and of itself, but I do have an issue with the fact that they're essentially playing the same characters. Like David Earl, for example, is playing the same sort of oddball character that he did in Derek, or Mandeep Dhillon, who plays his work colleague in this and also played his work colleague on Life in the Road. Steven Spears plays another oddball in this, and he's also playing an oddball in Extras. And then even when he does use different actors in different parts, I felt like there were similarities still to be found, like the super campy amateur theatre director is basically the same in both Extras and in this. And then you've got Paul Kaye, who's playing the psychiatrist, who in the first season was just an inept psychiatrist who didn't really care, and in this one he turns into a full-on version of Finch from The Office. Now, I could literally go on forever comparing the similarities between characters and other projects, but there is one more thing that I have noticed that Ricky Gervais tends to do, is that he always writes characters who sing praises of the character that he's playing, so it's like he's getting his mates to tell him how good or kind or how funny he is. Let me give you a little montage to show you what I mean.
I'm just glad I met Derek, you know, because he makes me feel better, because he's better than everyone.
He's got a heart of gold, hasn't he? Shame more people aren't like that, really.
Definitely one of the funniest tours I've ever been on. I quite like Brent.
You're never very good at hearing how lovely you are. But you're lovely.
I think you're brilliant, Tony, and
it's just funny. It's just funny.
Yeah, he's funny.
you're so funny. You make me laugh all the time.
He's quite a guy.
Now, is it just me, or is that Ricky Gervais kind of stroking his own ego and getting his mates and friends to tell him how funny and clever and how much of a genius he is? I don't know. I think overall, looking at the bigger picture, Afterlife is actually very watchable. It's easy viewing and it's very relatable too, but it is a bit repetitive, and maybe that's the point. I mean, they do name drop Groundhog Day quite a lot in this. So that's my thoughts on Afterlife Season 2, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. I know this hasn't exactly been an in-depth review of Afterlife. I mean, the production values aren't exactly lavish, that's what he's going for. There's some nice music choices in there. It's been more of a look at Ricky Gervais himself, and I do wonder if the missing factor is Stephen Merchant. I really love the Office and Extras and the Ricky Gervais podcast show that he did with Carl Pilkington, and then Idiot Abroad. I love all of that stuff, and it just feels like Afterlife is a bit repetitive. I don't know, it might be just me, but I'm very interested to know what you thought. Let me know down in the comments, and as always, thanks very much for watching this review. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give it a like, and don't forget to share the lave.
Subscribe.